You're listening to CAAT Tales, the podcast of SLC Faculty Local 417, your union connection. Each episode, we bring you real stories from our members, practical tips on your rights, and the kind of information that helps us all move forward.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CAAT Tales, the podcast where Local 417 gets real, gets curious, and occasionally gets a little spicy about the collective agreement clauses. I'm your host, Julie White. Today's episode starts with someone you've definitely encountered, whether in your inbox, on Teams, or quietly making our local look way more polished than most unions our size. I'm talking about our communications officer, Christina Chrysler. We're kicking things off by getting to know her a bit better by putting her through a round of rapid fire questions that she absolutely did not get to prepare for. After that, it's time for Is It a Gripe or a Grievance? And this week, we're talking about moving expenses. Then we're going to shift into our member spotlight featuring Owais Aziz, who joins me for a thoughtful, grounded conversation about belonging, how it shows up, why it matters, and the tiny moments that make or break our sense of community at work. And before we wrap, I've got a quick hold the date for our upcoming general membership meeting, because democracy only works if you show up. All right, let's get into it. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
All right, are you ready for the rapid fire?
As ready as I'll ever be. I panic under pressure, so we'll see.
All right, we're going to start with the easy one. Tim Hortons, Starbucks, or homebrew?
Homebrew.
Early bird or night owl?
I'm somewhere in between, like a 10 to 2 peak time. I'm more of a pigeon in the middle somewhere.
What's the last book you read?
The Flowering by Judy Chicago. It's an autobiography, a fascinating feminist artist.
Excellent. What's one song that always lifts your mood?
Ooh, it's funny. I recommended this to someone not long ago, Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine, or whatever they used to be called. Any of it. Anything you get the Congo, like drums going, or bongos, or yeah, that gets you going. And if I'm really down, I will put that kind of pop playlist on my way to work, and I feel better when I get there.
That's great. What's your pet peeve?
I mean, we don't have time. I have a list. I don't know off the top of my head. These are things that come up in the moment, and I'm like, oh, that really drives me crazy. But I couldn't tell you any one specific one right now. I guess people chewing with their mouth open, that drives me nuts.
The sound of mouth.
The sound.
Yeah.
The sound, yeah.
What's your hidden talent or hobby that most colleagues don't know about?
Oof. I don't know. I mean, I would say, if anything, people would be surprised by the number of hobbies that I have, because I get micro obsessing about things. So I think it's more not like a specific one, just that if something comes up in conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, I've got that tool, or I've got that thing, or I've done this before. And it's because I micro obsess and start things and then move on to 10 other ones.
Okay. And this is kind of probably a little bit related. If you weren't teaching, what would you imagine yourself doing?
Well, I mean, I'm an artist. I'm an artist outside of the college, and that's what I was hired as. And I would hopefully be making money doing that and living, although, who knows?
All right. What's your go-to comfort food?
Anything Mexican or Indian, I'd say, like something with some spice to it, warming the soul from the inside out. So.
Nice. And what's your guilty pleasure?
I can't believe I'm going to say this on a podcast, but maybe nobody will know. Nobody may hear this. I enjoy watching Bob's Burgers, which is an animated show, and that gives me something to talk to my students about sometimes, but I just think it's hilarious. And yeah, so Bob's Burgers is my guilty pleasure.
I get that. I totally get that. It's a great show. And what's one word that your friends would use to describe you?
Would hope authentic, and sometimes maybe that's not a great thing, but yeah, that's what I would hope they would describe me as.
All right. So you survived the rapid fire session. Was it?
Yeah, it's really stressful. I've got sweaty palms.
We need to come up with prizes for this.
Yeah, I would do no good under any kind of police questioning or FBI questioning.
Oh, all right. So let's talk a bit more about your personal and professional kind of background. What's one thing that surprises people when they get to know you better?
Maybe it's similar to the hobby question I think you asked me. I think it would depend on the context people meet me in or know me in, perhaps. My brain doesn't stop ever. And I just devour information constantly. Oddly enough, I can't recall any of it on demand, which would be really helpful. But in conversation, some information comes out of my mouth and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know I knew that. But it's because I have all these like micro obsessions, or I learn and just devour and consume information so steadily. And so I tend to know a little bit about a lot of things. And I think that maybe surprises people, especially if, like I said, it depends on the context. If you're meeting me as an artist and I start talking about, something to do with psychology, that might throw someone off, or you only know me as an art teacher, but then, I have this other background as well. So I think it's just that I've explored a lot of things in my time.
All right. It sounds to me like, you really embody that lifelong learning, whether that be a formal learning process or whether it just be kind of what you're interested in and you're going and finding that information on your own.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the advent of the internet was a good thing or not. I mean, I predate it, right? But yeah, I mean, I think we need to be learning all the time. We should be questioning things all the time. And I like to find the answers to those questions. So
I love that. How did you get into teaching and when was that?
I fell into formal teaching in a way previous to exploring art full time as my career. My first background or first education was actually with SLC at Behavioral Science Technology. And I did do a lot of like workshops and run a lot of things that had to do with stress management and wellness, and it ties into some other training that I have. And then when I moved myself and my children to the Brockville area, I took some more courses at the college just to integrate into the community, really. It's not that I needed them per se, it's just to do what I was doing. It was just that it was a good way to meet people. And again, that thirst for knowledge. And it eventually kind of led to me being offered some teaching positions and exploring some opportunities with the college. And that was 13 years ago. And I've been there ever since. So it was just a natural progression, I guess.
You've probably seen a lot of change at the college over that time. I don't know if this is a fair question to ask you right now, but what is some of that change and how does that look for you, kind of looking back at where things were at when you were starting out compared to where they are now?
Yeah, there has been a ton of change. And I think I've been there long enough that it's starting to come around full circle. And I didn't necessarily understand that when I first started, and people would say that had been there longer. I think there's been a change definitely in the environment. I think there's been a change in just education in general and how people learn and our understanding of that. And definitely a change in students and their expectations and our expectations of them. I think that when I first started at the college, we had just announced our values and missions as we know them now. And I distinctly recall being very proud and elated with finding an employer whose values embodied it were the same as those that I embodied. And I think the environment that we, as an institution, have been forced to operate under has made us stray a bit from some of those values, or at least how we used to represent those. And I don't think that is a malicious intent. I think it's a reflection of underfunding and the various steps that the college has had to take to navigate that and preserve jobs and teaching and keeping the lights on and doors open. And I'm very hopeful that we can come back to some of that soon. I think we are on a cyclical pattern here, and we've had this mass building. Suddenly we had more programs or more sections of programs and more management and more part-time faculty and contract faculty. And unfortunately, that was maybe a little bit too fast, and we're kind of crashed around us. Many of the ideas that we see coming forward now is just the way we used to operate. It's not revolutionary. We've just come back to the beginning, but there's just not as many people here that remember it, maybe. So I would say those are some of the big changes. We're just on a cycle, and we're at the beginning of it again, I think, and a time to build.
And what are some of those most meaningful courses that you've taught over the years?
I don't know that I'd say there is a specific course that has been meaningful. I mean, I've had the privilege of both teaching in my program and other programs and gen eds, and I've enjoyed all of that. I think what's been most meaningful is just being part of people's journey and recognizing that this is a really pivotal point for them, whether they are cognizant of it or not, they've made an effort to come and be there and learn and evolve and adapt, and we get to be part of that. And I don't take for granted the role that we as educators play in that. Often people are looking up to us. They're seeing us as maybe more important than we are a lot of the time. And I don't take that for granted. I try to be very mindful of that. So I think that every course has been important because it's shaping who these people become and where they go beyond the college.
Right. And that's one of the questions that I like to ask is, what do you love most about teaching?
Well, I love seeing people succeed at things they didn't think they could. And I think maybe working in the arts, everything that we do is so hands-on, like in the core courses that I've taught. It is amazing to see people achieve things because it's tangible things that they achieve. And so we can actually point to things and say, look, you did this. Seeing people fill with confidence and understand their own potential, that's really very rewarding.
And is there a moment that or an event that really stands out for you as kind of one of those big success points in your career?
Actually, I'd say probably recently. There's one that happened recently that I think will probably stay with me for quite some time. A number of years ago, when I was teaching a gen ed, I had a student who was actually in nursing at the time and had been struggling as English as a second language, and they're a real go-getter and was trying really hard and was just not feeling it, and so when they found out that at the time I was still curator of the gallery on Brockville as well as coordinator for the fine arts, when they found out that I did arts as well, started bringing me in samples of their work to look at, just really wanted me to see their work. And so I encouraged them to take some summer school of the arts classes, and that evolved into them taking program courses part-time, and then they came in and finished in the full-time. And last year went and did an articulation agreement in Ireland and got their master's. And I saw them last week, and I was saying how proud I was of how much they had evolved and really grasped the opportunities. And we were remembering some of the projects and that they had done with us, like way back when they first started. Remember when you couldn't even do this and you didn't know what collage was and you did. And she said, I do remember. I think of it all the time. Meeting you changed my life. And that's something. Yeah, that's something that I think I'll hold dear.
Those are the moments. Those are the things that
Yeah, for sure.
really make this all worthwhile for us.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder of how important the words that we say and the effort we make when we're, dealing with or frustrated with all the other things that are happening in the college sector, just reminding ourselves that the experience is very real for the people that we're in front of every day too.
It's our why, and it brings us right back to those values. Okay, in terms of the gallery, do you want to talk a little bit about your role with the gallery as well?
Well, I mean, I'm no longer curator of that space. That transitioned to Heather Savage back in 2018 when I was, because of the union, became full-time. Previous to that, I was doing what many people have done. I held support contracts, partial load teaching. I was coordinating as partial load and curator, and I was doing summer school of the arts coordinating as well. And because of a joint grievance or group grievance, myself and 4 or 5 other people were awarded their full-time positions. So that is really what launched me into being involved with the union in the first place.
Outside of teaching, what are your passions and interests that really keep you energized and motivated? I know arts are a big part of it.
Yeah, like right now I'm doing a lot of larger sculpture and installations, and I'm fortunate enough to live on 37 acres, and so I'm starting to do some quite large installation pieces. I'll be working on those through the winter and spring. And as well, I do a lot of oil painting and mixed media assemblage, mostly things that are really dirty and require a tetanus shot. For the grubbier, the better. I have alpacas, which bring me an immense amount of joy. We have some fainting goats. I have some Angora goats. I have some chickens. So crazy animals that are here for no other purpose than my amusement, really. They keep me energized.
Can you share a little bit more about how you got involved with the union, and what inspired you to do that?
Sure. I mean, I joined this as a steward just after our strike in 2017. And I think I had that moment that I realized many members do at some point, where you realize that you're just a part of a larger machine, really. Like you can have really wonderful relationships with your direct manager and on campus. And I certainly had a good relationship with my manager. I had no issues there. But when we went on strike, it really highlighted how we as individuals are not necessarily important to the greater college system, right? And it was really important for me to do something of meaning and help support people since I had benefited from the union. I had received a full-time job just after that. It was important. I saw the importance of the union and being involved in the union in a way I didn't understand before. And it allowed me to kind of step in and want to provide that for other people and give back the way I had benefited from the union. So that's how I kind of got into it. At the time, Grant was our president and Christina Chrysler became our first communications officer. We formed a communications team with her, myself, and Curtis Runyons. Christina is the one that started the digest and the CAAT Tales. And then obviously she stepped into the president role and I was elected into the communications officer position, and the rest, as they say, is history.
All right. So walk me through kind of what a week in the life of the comms officer looks like.
Some weeks it's chaos. It depends on what it is. It's a lot of strategizing and it's a lot of sorting through information, which is okay because I love information. Trying to balance sharing information about the greater labor movement and where we sit in it, like OPSU, for example, with what is directly happening at our local level, because sometimes those things are connected and sometimes they don't feel connected. It's a lot of monitoring what's kind of happening around us, whether that be on social media or what's happening in the halls. And that's become increasingly difficult as people work from home. So it's reaching out to people, finding out like what's the chatter, what are people concerned about, what kinds of things are being talked about so that we can anticipate barriers that people are experiencing that might be union related. If there's information that people are lacking, how can we get that information to them and keep everyone calm, really? So a lot of the week is checking in, observing, listening, sorting through information, what's relevant right now, what needs to hold off, what strategies are we going to develop. So for example, members may not realize this because they're just receiving information, but we started preparing people through communications for bargaining about a year and a half before it actually got there. We were starting to share information. We're constantly trying to monitor or I am trying to monitor where we are in the bargaining cycle so that we can provide people information so that they're not last minute, oh my God, we're going to go on strike. Where do I find information? That this is coming to them as a steady flow in preparation. So before we went into bargaining the summer before, for example, I provided a lot of information about preparing budgets or cost savings and that kind of thing so people could prepare for something in case it happened. And so there's a lot of strategy involved. And just as an FYI for people, our collective agreement expires in 2027. So we're going to have to start with some of that again. But then there are also processes within the college that we need to be mindful of. When are we getting our SWIPs? When should people have them by? What kind of questions are people going to have? When do things go to WMG? What is that process like? And there are people who've been here a long time who already know that information, but then there are people that are new that don't know that information or haven't had a problem before, so they haven't maybe paid attention to the information. So it's always trying to balance those things. What's going on? What do we have to, what information needs to get out and what doesn't? So a lot of filtering that. And then there's just the regular steward role of supporting people, answering questions, directing people to parts of the collective agreement, helping them interpret that, and maybe sitting in on a meeting with a manager or whatever, like the usual steward things that come up as well. And then my teaching.
How do you balance it all?
I mean, I'm fortunate the membership did vote to support our offloads, which we divvy up as needed. So I have less of an offload right now than I did previously when we were in the thick of bargaining. I have slightly less. And one thing that we're really getting a lot of information from OPSU or were until recently were the Save the Colleges campaign, for example. So these outside campaigns are always happening too that I have to be engaged with. And support and whatnot. So sometimes the balance is hard. It depends kind of where we are and what's going on and what's going on with OPSU. But fortunately, because the membership has supported an offload, I do get a bit of an offload to help with that.
Great. And you talked a bit earlier about how it can be difficult with people working from so many different locations and so many remote locations. You're starting to see that lack of communication. Perhaps there's fewer people in the hallways to have those day-to-day conversations, and you're seeing probably growth in social media. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like and the importance of the social media role for the union and what some of your activities are there?
Sure. I think what we're seeing is a reduction in relationship. If there was a time, people were working from their offices on campuses, and there are people that still do that. I know for myself, when I go onto Brockville campus, it is empty, virtually empty. People are either in the classrooms or they leave. They don't hang around like we used to. So there isn't that water cooler chat. You don't have a thumb on the pulse of things quite the same. I think people are craving relationship and connection, especially because things are as strained and as difficult as they are. And not being able to find that creates additional anxiety. I think there is, social media plays a really important part of communications. It's an important way for people to connect and feel heard and seen. And so, of course, we have our private Facebook group, we have our public Facebook page, we have Instagram, we have and our YouTube channel to share video clips of information. So yeah, these are important things, and I do watch the conversation, and not from a perspective of trying to monitor or shut down communications between people, but as a way of seeing where people are at, what information needs to be shared, because there's misinformation that comes out. And like I said before, sometimes it's benign, sometimes it can be quite dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that it can harm people personally, it can be hurtful to people, it can be insensitive to the situation that people find themselves in under these circumstances. But it can also be very damaging in terms of work that's going on behind the scenes between the union and the college. And that's a relationship that's equally as important, because it does impact everyone potentially. So, I mean, social media has been, I think, a really important part in people connecting. And we just need to remember to use it positively and as positively as possible. And when there are individual questions that we have that are very specific to us that are union related, they need to come back to a steward maybe directly. If they are things related to policy and college operations, they need to go to managers. And I recognize that people are concerned quite often. Well, maybe they don't know their manager, for one, because we've had so many changes, but people are fearful right now. And I think it's important to remind everyone that when it comes to layoffs, when they eventually happen, it has absolutely nothing to do with your performance or asking questions. It is strictly as outlined in the collective agreement. So yeah, social media is really important in helping to connect and share that information and share information between members.
Excellent. And what kind of efforts have you seen that have really made you feel proud in terms of the union's communications?
Well, I think it's kind of a joint effort here. So messages come from me and I create them, or I create the memes, or I create the videos and that kind of thing, because that's my job as communications officer. But I can only do that because of the rest of the LEC and the relationships that we have as a group and the ability we have to share information and communicate. And like everything I put out is based on those conversations. It's a reflection of how the LEC is functioning. And I think we have a really strong LEC. We're fortunate. Not all colleges have as large of or as strong LEC as we do. I've met individuals from colleges that have, a president and vice president, and like that's it, or maybe a lead steward and no other stewards there to help carry the load, so they aren't able to provide as much support as we are. So we're very fortunate in that way. And I think what makes me proud, if I can use that word, is that information that we come up with together, or those conversations we have that inform what I put out as communications, has been used by other locals to help them, because they don't have the resources to do that. And we see that particularly in bargaining. We did see it through Work to Rule before, and we had a Work to Rule committee that was made up of members at large using their skills and knowledge to help with that. And, through our recent bargaining, we were only as successful as we were as a province coming together, because we were all able to share information. And I was proud to be able to represent us, or to provide things from Local 417 that were able to help bolster the efforts of other locals as well.
And you mentioned that we have a strong local. Always we're looking for new people and additional people to step forward to help out What advice would you pass on to somebody who's considering stepping up and taking on a leadership role with their union?
I think everyone should participate in the union to the level that they're comfortable with. And if you're considering learning more, you think you might want to step forward, this spring is our elections again. And I encourage people to step forward because we're not a separate group of people. We're faculty, right? We're all and counselors and now contract people as well. So it's important that people have a conversation with the steward. What's it like? What can I expect? If they are thinking of something on the executive committee or role, talk to the person who's doing it and find out and put your name forward. And I also think that any member who is interested in the union should consider attending convention in April and are putting their name forward to participate in that, because attending OPSU events, for me, I know the first OPSU event I went to was a writing conference and a communications conference. And it changed my whole perspective of what it meant to be part of a union, because you get to see yourself within a big picture and you start to understand the larger campaigns and what your role is in it and the importance of solidarity and how that can impact not just us at St. Lawrence College, but it can have a ripple effect across sectors, across into the private realm as well. It can change people's lives for the better. And it's really very meaningful. So if people are interested in being part of the union, I'd say learn more, talk to stewards, see what OPSU is actually about, and go from there, I guess.
And looking ahead, do you have any specific hopes for the communication strategy for Local 417?
I think our goals are always engagement, and we have a very engaged local in general. Our Friday Digest, for example, are regularly viewed by anywhere from 300 to 400 people. And that's pretty good given our size. That's more people that are full-time, definitely, which is good because we do need to connect with the other members. I think in terms of hopes and dreams and those types of things, it's just continued engagement and expanded engagement. We are now a composite local. Connecting to people who are part-time contract, who come and go, is going to be difficult, but I would hope that we can find a way, maybe through this podcast, to bridge the gap.
And now, another fun episode of Is It a Gripe or a Grievance?
Hey, Jillian. I've been teaching at the Brockville campus for years, but I've just been assigned teaching in Kingston. The most feasible thing for me to do is to relocate, but the college is refusing to help cover those costs.
Okay, violation of the collective agreement, absolutely. If they're moving you from Brockville to Kingston on a permanent basis, not a one-off, not a course here and there, then yes, they either have one of two choices. They have to start paying your mileage, or you have to move and they have to pay, definitely a violation if they're not willing to do that. Or the other solution is, if the courses are feasible, put them online or put them some version of synchronous online or asynchronous online or some variation. But if they're permanently wanting you to move from your current position in Brockville to Kingston because there's no position left potentially in Brockville and there is one in Kingston, then yeah, there is moving expenses available.
$1,000 may be allocated for moving expenses. Check Article 27.15 of the collective agreement for details.
And now it's time for another edition of Member Spotlight.
Today's guest, Mohammed Owais Aziz, is giving us an exclusive first look at one of the most compelling threads in his research, the true meaning of belonging, and how an educator's sense of belonging evolves over time. Owais has been digging into the usual suspects that we expect shape belonging: our colleagues, our supervisors, our own values and identities. But his work uncovers a major missing piece in this existing research, a group that profoundly shapes who we are as educators, yet has been largely overlooked, and that's our students. In this conversation, Owais walks us through early insights from his study, insights he'll soon be sharing on a much bigger stage. He's one of only a handful of scholars selected from more than 13,000 applicants to present at the American Education Research Association conference in Los Angeles this April. But before he heads to LA, he's got another milestone on the horizon, January 12th, the day that he defends his thesis. What he's sharing with us today is just a glimpse into his broader PhD research, which focuses on contemporary human anatomy education and how belonging threads through the heart of teaching and learning in ways that we're only beginning to understand. Without further ado, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Owais to the podcast. Welcome, Owais. Can you start by sharing a little bit about how you found your way to St. Lawrence College?
So until 2012, I was working in healthcare. My wife, Soya, we were both healthcare professionals and we were working in healthcare. And we were blessed with a little tiny daughter. Her name is Zara. And what happened completely changed our life. I don't know why. Like she had some sort of magic in her or I don't know. So what happened, we end up deciding to raise our kids and raise our family where we will be having more time with the kids and we should be able to enjoy them as they grow rather than just being a professional, because healthcare profession is not a profession, it's a lifestyle. Healthcare is a lifestyle. Like if you're in healthcare, you have to dedicate to that lifestyle. You should forget what weekends means. You should forget what holidays are, right? So anyway, so once we had Zara, so we said okay, let's do something else. So she, my wife, she resigned from her job and she wanted to be a full-time mom. And we decided we will stay 10 years like this and we'll have kids and families and all those things. And I decided I should pursue career in something which I not used to do, like teaching, the second best profession for me. So I found it teaching, right? So then we applied for Canadian immigration and we got our immigration approved within a year. That is surprising. So we moved to Canada, and when I came Canada, I said okay, let's grow my skill in teaching. I went to Queen's, I did my master's from Queen's, and after that I become every graduate become something called jobless, right?
Or looking.
So yeah. So that's a funny way of putting it, right? So I become someone who does not have any job or anything. So in Canada, so I was I have applied hundreds of places and I was not getting any response. So then we were expecting our last baby and Amna. So she was supposed to born in September. She was expected date was 7 September. So we thought we will stay in Canada until end of the year and then we'll find the job anywhere in the world, right? So we were open to relocate from Canada. So that was our decision. And so we were just waiting for Hamna to born and then we will just relocate out of the Canada, right? So when Hamna was born, I got some EI and I said let's enjoy some time in Canada before leaving it. Let's travel around. So I try one of my dad cousin, he lives in Cornwall, north of Cornwall. So we said, okay, they were inviting us continuously, you should visit this area. This is so beautiful region and this and that. I'm a city person. I was born in one of the mega city. I was grown up in a big mega city, right? So I said, okay, let's go. Once we were here in Cornwall, my plan was to stay overnight and we end up staying for 3 days. We end up staying at my uncle's place for 3 days. The weather, they had a big backyard or of couple of acres, right? So kids were there playing in the snow. So in the morning, on the Monday morning, my uncle says are you okay to drop my daughter? She was a nursing student to my cousin to college. I said, yeah, I'm fine with it. And informally, I just said can I have my resume printed? He said, yeah, you can have your resume printed. I just print my resume. It was 2 pages, right? And while driving on the way, I asked my cousin, how is your dean? Deb Esteva was dean at that time. And she said at that time, the international students start flowing in St. Lawrence College. So she said she have sent an email offering any student who will bring her a problem, she can offer her a coffee. I said, okay, so I don't know if I will get a job. I will get this copy for sure from her. Honestly, this was in my mind. That was in my heart. That was my mission, that I will end up getting this coffee from her. So what happened? I just stay outside. There was a meeting going on in her office. Once she was out of that meeting, I knock, and I went in. And the first thing I said, hey, how are you? She said, I'm good. And she was looking at me and I said, I heard you offer a coffee to anyone who comes and visit you. That was my punchline, or that was the line which comes in my mind. And that was the thing which I said at the entrance to the tab tab, all right? Then she opened her drawer and she was able to find a coupon of a free coffee. And she said, "Yeah, here you can have a coffee and you can get that coffee downstairs." And when she was handing me over that, I had already pulled my resume and I said to her that, "Meanwhile, you can have a look at my resume. I want to teach here." And she clapped and she started laughing. she she laughed for like minute or so. Like she was like, I can see like she didn't know like how to react to this situation. Anyways, then she started asking me a few questions. Jen was, she's our dean right now, Jennifer Ailey. So Jen was AD at the time. So she called Jen and they both had a small interaction with me. Next week, they called me for an interview. And after that, they offered me a partial load position there. And then with the contract going on with the partial load, like you don't know whether you will be in job next month or then during the summertime you will be like losing jobs. So what happened, like I applied across the border in US. So at Clarkson University. So I got a position of assistant professor at Clarkson University. And then what happened that when Jen learned that the same year, one of the chemistry professors had retired. So they had a position empty for it. I was able to after a competition, I was able to get a job here. So then I resigned from US and I just decided like, okay, I will just work in a college rather than in university. And I never looked back on that decision from that day. Like I'm loving SLC. Like I will be honest, at least like the Cornwall campus, the relationship, the collegial relationships and the friendliness, openness from all the way from if I will just mention the name of Glenn, right? So I have never seen a president of a college or an institute coming to you and saying, "Hey, how are you? Owais? How's everything?" And then all the way, like go from the leadership, from tab, from colleagues. Colleagues are amazing. You are never like I have worked in 4 or 5 different countries and more than 10 cities, 8 to 10 cities and multiple organizations. The collegial relationship here in Cornwall is second to none.
Wow.
Like it's like you will. It's very hard to get that, and sometimes we are blessed with these type of colleagues, and sometimes we do not appreciate how lucky we are, or we might not be appreciative of that. I think that's one of the key factors which keep me at SLC. Otherwise, I have a bad record of not working for more than 18 months at a workplace.
So you've been here for a long time then.
It's 8 years now.
Yeah. So given your 18 months and then move on. So that's
Yeah.
pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're loving Cornwall, obviously. Your family enjoys Cornwall as well.
We love Cornwall. And again, because my mind was around the belonging piece, right? So I will just share a story how the Cornwall community is. I'm Muslim, right? So I'm active in this Muslim community. We have 3 mosques in Cornwall. So I'm attached with all 3 of them. I go there, visit them. Like I do prayers there regularly, especially Friday prayers. I start going there by taking some elderly people there
nice.
volunteer for the Friday prayers. So I was well connected with the mosque and people knows me around. So do you remember there was an incident at Christchurch in New Zealand where there was a mass shooting in couple of mosques at that time? So what happened? So I was in US and we heard that news and we were both, me and my wife, when we saw that news, we were both like, our morale and everything goes boom down, right? We were just depressed and all those things. And all of a sudden, I saw a message from at that time, she was mayor of Cornwall, Bernida Klama. Ma'am, I received a message from her that she want to meet with Muslim community and console them and have a meeting with them. That changed totally everything, right? That was something you never expect from anyone. Like you don't expect those type of messages. And that's where I understand the meaning of these type of messages, how significant these messagings are from the leadership when they acknowledge something bad happened and they just say that we are standing with the community or we are standing with the victims of those communities, right? So, and not blaming or like it is you. They're not saying like it is your mistake because you guys are doing like those things, right? So that is something blaming the victim. So that's not part of the culture of Cornwall or SLC. That's what like make you belong to a system. And that's where like it changed my mind. Like, okay, there is something where the leadership can impact the whole community just by one text message and just by spending 2 or 3 hours with you or with the community after something happened, right?
I love that you're bringing that forward and talking about the importance of it, because sometimes we think, is this enough? Does it look performative versus, is it something that's going to be received heartfelt? And it's really great to hear that. And you've done an awful lot of work too with the Muslim community.
Yeah.
And a lot of your works in Cornwall as well. So that belonging piece, I know, has gone kind of both ways as well. And how does this kind of tie in? Let's bring it into the classroom now. And you've done some research, being a person who's a minority and in teaching and kind of what that looks like. So do you want to talk a little bit about your research and what some of your findings are, and I guess maybe where we'll start with where you started for the idea for this research?
So I will say, like, when I was collecting all these thoughts, one thing we should understand, the construct of or the meaning of a word differ in different language, different culture, and different places. For example, a same word which a person will speak in like even in our language Urdu means different in Arabic, even though their meaning would be same, right?
Okay.
And if the same word is being translated into another language, fourth language, it would be a totally different meanings, right? So I will give you an example of like a text, like biblical text, right? So the biblical text, the word is earth and heavens, right? Okay.
Right.
So in our culture, the word is arzo was samawat in Arabic, right? And in our language, okay, I will not go to third language. So let's compare these two languages, right? So when it's come to the earth and heavens, if you're going to translate the literal meaning of heavens in Arabic, Urdu, or Persian, it become like a paradise. It doesn't mean like a skies, right? And if you're going to translate like the samawat, the word samawat from Arabic into sky, it means sky of the earth, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the big concept comes with it, right? So same words have different meanings when you go to different community in different places, right? So for example, like let's talk about the word belonging here. So I'm just going into back story of all those things, like how I perceive this idea. So what happened, like I was part of EDI and belonging committee team task force, right?
Mhm.
SLC. So there where I start listening to this word belonging, and I understand like it means something big, or it is something which is required for, or is it something which is missing from the community, right? So what's going on around this word? Like why this word has so much meaning in it in the place where I am right now, right?
Okay.
Like or in Cornwall or in Canada or in this area, what does this word means, right? Because if you talk to a Sufi, again, I will not translate that into mystic person, right? The word Sufi I'm using intentionally here. So if you will say like the Sufi person says like I belong to the God and nothing around me makes any difference. So once I belong to it, I lose everything. So they have a different sense of belonging there, right? When I was in Maldives, like the people will say we belong to sea and the sea belong to us, and sea give us all the nourishment and food and everything nurture us, right? So they said we belong to the sea and sea belong to us. So you see where the concept of belonging was. And of course with the daughter, like when I saw her, I said, okay, I belong to this tiny thing, right? Now, when I start doing research on this topic, I find like the huge amount of research has been done on whenever we talk about the classroom belonging, people always think about belonging from a perspective of students. But when it's come to the belonging is like our need, right? We need to belong to certain things. And like all the way you can start the history from Maslow hierarchy of need, that belonging is part of that need of basic human need. So in like what you call organizational behavior, you'll find huge impact of belonging there. So, but the thing is, there was very, very less research from the perspective of faculty or teachers or educators and how their belonging is shaped over the years, over the time. Most of the research was around students. So I find a gap there where no one was doing a research or no one is actively doing a research. They have some component, like if they have like taken a data of 1500 students, they will have a say of 15 professors there too, right? But that is not representing 15 faculty members. So that's where I find a gap. And that's where that was the area which I start exploring, right? So when I was looking at the frameworks, there was no exclusive frameworks on belonging, and then the impact of belonging, like, so there was nothing around educators. and there was nothing around higher educators, or I wasn't able to find anything around higher educators, professors belonging, or higher education sector teachers belonging, right? So I was not able to find something which was solid, right? So I start exploring this area, or so I end up doing qualitative analysis on the topic of belonging. So that's where like the background story of how I come across this topic of belonging, where you can see multiple cultures, multiple experiences, and then where I'm living, I should understand it there to understand that Canadian culture or my surrounding better. So that's what lead me to the research in the area of belonging, or like what does it mean and why it has so significance. Indigenous have like huge thing for belonging.
So the whole kind of idea from it grew from the EDI work that was the first framework, or the consultations of the first framework, and is that when you started to say, okay, we're missing this belonging piece? What is it?
Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
that's where like I start. EDI task force was the one which literally opened my eyes. Like this is something which is not being explored. Like what does it mean? Like if I'm living in or working at SLC, what does it mean literally? Like what does uh belonging is? What is belonging, right?
Yeah.
So like
So I'm
yeah.
sitting on the edge of my seat now. I want to know what you discovered.
Okay. So it very interesting. Like, okay, I will say here that the definition which I end up generating from multiple studies, when you're doing research, you have to look for your own positionality as well, right? So what position you are coming from. So for me, with experience of living in 5-6 different cultures and 4-5 different countries, and different countries with different cultures of the areas, I believe like this belonging is a dynamic construct. Like it is not something which is stable, and it just keep on evolving, and certain factors are there which will make you enhance your belonging, and there are certain factors which will decrease your belonging to. And this belonging could be to a community, this belonging could to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues, to your college, to your campus. So you have a sense of belonging with all these components. So belonging is not something which you can isolate in a small tiny thing. Like it is something which it is all surrounding you. For example, I can start with a small example, right? So for the message from Senator Bernida Klama, or at that time Mayor, was the one which enhanced my belonging from here to here, right? So like the Christchurch event brought my belonging very low, and that create a frustration in me. And then that email bring it like belonging me above the normal, right? So
Yeah.
it just changed with a message over time. That's where I understand that small acts do impact belonging a lot. So I touch that very explicitly in few minutes. But the thing is that that belonging does not stay constant. It changes all the time. Even it is an interesting thing is like I have study like 4 different groups, like health professionals versus non-health professional, visible minorities versus non-visible minorities. So all those 4 groups, I find like none of like everyone need to belong. Like it's not exclusive to one specific group of individual. It's not specific to Owais Aziz. It's not specific to Julie White. It is not specific to one individual. It is everyone need to belong, and everyone has to play their role in that belonging. Like I have to play that role. I was talking to a friend and I said like it's very interesting, like when you come to the west part of the world, everyone say that these are your rights, you should fight for your rights. When you go on the other side, they said these are your responsibility, you should be responsible for these. Responsibility comes first, then comes your right. So there should be a balance between both of them. So if we believe like to belong to a community, that's our right, then we should understand that make others belong to that community is your responsibility.
Right.
Does it make sense?
It does.
So, like, I will repeat the sentence here, right? So, for example, if you believe that it is your right to belong to a community, then it's your responsibility to make others feel belong to that community as well. So, it's not one-way street; it's a both-way street. So, it is an interaction of belonging. Is not something which is static. It is or one directional. It is both directional. Like if I will see you with a smile, you will reply me with a smile. Not maybe first time, maybe third time, right? So here the smiling is as creating a community here, right? It's creating a belonging, a small act, such a tiny act, right? So, like, one of the interesting, very unique finding of my study was, like, because I think this podcast might be heard by all of our colleagues, right? So one thing which I noticed in my study and is that small gesture of kindness, small gestures such as knocking the door, hey Julie, hey, how are you? How's everything? Everything is good? Okay, take care, bye. That's it, done. Right? That small interaction, hey, how are you doing? How's everything? Yeah. Go move ahead. Hey, how's your students doing? How's everything? Knock the door, ask your colleague, move ahead. That create a unique sense of belonging among those who are in trouble, among those who are here. And when I was doing my study, I found some, like, college sector is going through crisis within last one couple of years or 1.5 years, right? And with strike looming on our head before, and now that there was a strike of our support staff and all those things which were happening. When you're going through a trauma and someone knock at your door and say, hey, how are you doing? And you just said, like, I'm frustrated because of all the things which are happening in my surrounding. Like, when you console someone when they are in their low state of feeling or when they're feeling low, right? So these small acts of kindness, you never know when you're knocking a door of a colleague and you end up developing that or increasing their sense of belonging, right? And believe me, after this finding, whenever I go in my hallway, I knock every door and I say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, Julie. Hi, Denise. Hi, Carla. Hi, like, Mazin. How are you doing? How's everything? And then I will just go there. Like, then I will go to my office. On my way back, I will just smile at everyone, knock at every door. And I think it become part of my, what you call, religion. I do it religiously. Like, I'm doing it like as a something which now I believe it's something which is, I don't know what's the correct word for it, but it is something which is very important.
Yeah, it's culture. It's building culture in the organization as well.
It's building not only culture, these are micro interactions. These micro interactions have macro impact. For example, I'm concerned about something and I was like open door policies. Like, open door policy means anyone can drop in my office and start crying or start doing different things. Like, for my students, every year there would be a student who will just find you in your room and they will just sit with you. They will shed some tears, and because they are not working well, or they the next test, which is in 1 hour, they're going to fail it and they want to drop it. And then when they talk to you after the test, once they will go back, they will really do good in the test, right?
Yeah.
So that small act of connections is something which has huge impact on people's life. And sometimes we do not recognize it. So now we have to do it consciously, not unconsciously. That's what my message to our colleagues is. Do it consciously. Open your door. Go and talk to the people consciously. Knock their door. Speak with them. Like just ask them how they're doing every day. That's all.
Make that connection.
Yeah. Yes.
And was that was one of the findings that you discovered kind of from your research?
Yes, that was one. I did a research like under 3 assumptions. So one was that your colleagues impact your belonging. The second assumption was that your supervisory role or supervisors shape your belonging. And the third was like your values shape your belonging. So how your values are. And interesting thing is, for my research, I was able to find in higher education, students also shape your belonging. So that was my unique finding, that students also shape your sense of belonging, how you feel like belong. For example, the messages at the end of semester by the students, the positive messages, not through the formal, what you call, our evaluation system. So those messages have a great impact on you. I will say all of the professors says that the students have great impact on your sense of belonging. If they are succeeding, you feel accomplished. If students are failing, you feel like, oh, something is wrong. There might be something wrong in my teaching, right? There might be something wrong, or I might be not doing enough, that's why my students are not successful. So there is that connection between students and faculty, which was unique in my finding.
So what do students do aside from feedback kind of at the end of the year? What do they do that can make you feel like you have a stronger bond?
Okay. So from the student side, yes, one of them is feedback. The second thing is their performance. If, for example, if you're teaching a class and everyone is quiet, you ask a question and you are not hearing anything back from the student. They are lost. They do not know what you're asking about, what you're talking about. How do you feel at that time, right? You feel totally disconnected from it. It's like we know these feelings, right? We go through these feelings every day, but we never put that on paper, right? So I got a chance to put that on paper. So what happened? Like these tiny things, like a student failure, a student success. Your belonging is connected to their success. Like
Okay.
I still feel proud of my profession because I see my student working at CCH, Cornwall Community Hospital. When I meet them, I said, this was the person I taught 3 years back or 2 years back. And now they're like a nurse. This person I mentored, I wrote a reference letter for this person. Now they are going in med school. Wow. So hey, you will be my family physician. I can say that to my patient, my students now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for you to graduate. So these are tiny things, right? Which makes a difference. So that was one of the finding. That was the second finding from this study. So that like the student's success has a direct impact on the faculty or the professor's sense of belonging, and then their everyday behavior. One thing which was very unique for our finding was that once a professor had a bad experience with a student where a student was not behaving appropriately with them, and the student was like, what I can say, misbehave with her, or based on her identity or based on her different things, and that didn't like decrease her sense of belonging, right? So that didn't decrease her sense of belonging because there were other students who stand up for her.
Mhm.
So there were other students who just after that incident, after de-escalation happened, they come to her and they said like that student was wrong and he should not have been doing this to you. We should not be behaving in certain way in which they have behaved, right? So here, a bad interaction does not decrease sense of belonging of our professor. And the reason was affirmation from colleagues, yes, management, plus students. They didn't let her or they didn't let them, like the faculty, go or feel lower at that time, right? So that is one of the negative interaction which I come across. Even when it's come to the negative interaction, even when two students are having a uncivilized disagreement in a group setting, you feel disconnected. Like why they are so grown up? Like why they are doing it?
Yeah.
Like why they cannot work together? Like what's happening in the group which is making them like. So these are some of the negative interactions with the student which can impact and sometimes which do not impact faculty sense of belonging, right? So then I can talk about something positive here. Everyday interaction with the students, which is positive, where they're interacting with you and where they're asking questions from you. So that's like one of another key, a big finding, right? Interaction or the positive or respectful interaction between you and your student, and it not only impact your like belonging, it also impact your professional identity. It reaffirm who you are and what you're doing is right. So it make you believe in yourself, and it improve your mental health and physical health both, right?
It helps reduce that imposter syndrome.
Yes. So it just change everything. Like those positive interaction with the students change everything in your life as a professor life, right? As a professional, it change everything. And another thing which I can add here is meaningful mentorship. When you really mentor a student and you saw them success, a student 18 years old comes to you and they said like, hey, Owais, I'm totally lost. Like, I do not know what I should be doing, whether I should be in healthcare or no. I'm like, they are enrolled in pre-health. I think I will not do well in pre-health. What should I do? Okay. So these are the steps which you can take. These are the things which you can do to improve yourself. And after a while, once they come back, they're good, right? Let me share an experience. So I had a student. He was front bencher. He will be answering all my questions. In test one, they scored around 70%. I noticed like after test one, that student become a backbencher. Just engage in the class. Next test, they scored like 40%. I called that student in and I talked to that student and I said, like, I know you are not capable of scoring 40%. What's going on? How can I help you? You're the person who can score 95%, not 40%. Test number 3, the same student scored exactly 95%. My sense of belonging, my professional identity, whatever words you will do for feelings, I don't think there is a word for it, right? So how much it boosts my morale, like that a student's success there, right?
Yeah.
So you can see a tiny example where your mentorship plays a role in success of a student. I got a message from one of my students. She was in pre-health. She wanted to be a doctor. And she said like they are not from well-off families, so she cannot afford it. So she have to work hard to earn those money and those everything. So I guided her and she cannot wait for, because of the family dynamic, she cannot wait for undergrad and then grad education to be in physician, right? Or she cannot wait like 8 years or for life. So I guided her like she can apply abroad, where there are places where you can do med school just after high school, and you can do it in 4 or 5 years from today. Now, then she went to Cyprus. She ended up somehow ending up in Cyprus, and she has completed her med school. She's doing her residency in US, and she will come back to our community. Hopefully, once her residency is over, she will come back to Ottawa and this region to start her practice. And she's in she sent me a message, hey, are you still looking for a family physician? I said, no, I'm good. So I joke with them, hey, once you're a doctor, don't forget, like I might make you my family physician, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get on your wait list now.
Yeah.
You know, we go home at the end of the day. How was the day? Well, it was, good, bad, whatever. But you never really think about why. And I think that belonging is one of those huge pieces that I've not necessarily thought about. So thank you for bringing that forward.
And the thing is, like, as this is our combined voice, right? So my paper is our combined voice. It is like something which we do every day, but we never think like it might be unique for other people, right? Like it is a normal expectation from a faculty to mentor their students, right? But sometimes we are underappreciated. Like, okay, I'm just going off a topic, but sometimes teachers are underappreciated for their hard work and for their dedication and for their emotional and physical investment in the students. I have never seen a harsh professor who is successful or who is continuously teaching for more than 1 year or 2 years. Never stay with them, right?
Yeah.
So we, like, there is in the group of teachers, there is something in them which make them teacher. So they have a unique identity or unique competencies which make them teachers. Because I shift my career from healthcare to here, so I saw that drastic change. Even when it's about the healthcare, different specialties have different personalities. So different.
So how did you gather the data for your research?
Okay. So it is a qualitative in a study. So I thought like it would be a great idea to explore something new. So I adopted to have interviews with the faculty, right? So I end up doing 11 interviews.
Okay. And are they all St. Lawrence people or are they across?
They are all from St.
Okay. All right. So the data that you're getting is very applicable specifically to us in the St. Lawrence environment.
Yes,
Okay.
it is very applicable. It is very applicable. And one interesting finding of St. Lawrence, which the people from St. Lawrence might be interested in hearing, is that the research shows that the mentorship or the mentee relationship in faculty and at supervisory roles and other roles or within the colleagues is like if supervisor or the mentor is from the same background, like then it will work better, right?
Okay.
But my finding interesting at St. Lawrence College is that if your colleague or your supervisor is inclusive, it doesn't matter what their background is. If your supervisor or your colleague is understand the values, understand the way interaction is supposed to be done, like they appreciate your celebration, they appreciate your what you call your like Eid celebration, right? Ramazan festival. So if they know only about it and they just ask, hey, how's your Ramazan going? Are you fasting? So that makes a difference. Like that makes a difference. It doesn't, like at St. Lawrence College, at least it doesn't matter what is your background. So, but other places in the research, it says like the background matter. But at SLC, this doesn't fit. Like anyone who is inclusive, anyone who can have a coffee with you, anyone who can chat with you, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
Interesting.
That's a unique thing. Yeah.
And it's a good thing to hear for us, but it's kind of a sad thing for other environments, because you would think that, that should be the norm
Hmm.
wherever we go. But hopefully we can spread that kind of out into the greater communities as well. It sounds
Yeah.
like Cornwall, though, already has a lot of great work that's being done there for
Mhm.
bringing that sense of belonging as well.
Just one thing which I will say, like a small act of kindness means a lot for someone you never know. And that small act could be just a smile. In our tradition, we call kullu marufin sadaqa, tabassum li akhika sadaqa. Tabassum means like smiling at someone else is also a way of charity. So it's something which is big, which is huge. So that is in Arabic, like smiling to someone is a big act of charity. So that's what would be my message for today's conversation.
Beautiful.
And now, the 411 on the 417.
You're listening to the 411 on the 417, your quick hit of updates from OPSU SEFPO Local 417. Here's your reminder that our general membership meeting is coming up on January 29th from 7 to 9 p.m. and we'll be meeting via Zoom, so everyone, part-time, sessional, partial load, and full-time faculty, can join us from wherever you are. This meeting includes an important motion to amend our operational bylaws, reflecting the fact that we're now a composite local. If you want the full story behind the amendment, tune into next week's episode where we'll break it all down. You can also read more in the December edition of CAAT Tales, the e-newsletter. So mark your calendar, set a reminder, stick a post-it note on your monitor, whatever works. We hope to see you there. Voices heard, cameras optional.
You've been listening to CAAT Tales, stories that matter to faculty and beyond. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit slcfaculty.ca and stay connected with us on social media.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or statements of OPSU SEFPO, St. Lawrence College, or any affiliated organizations. This podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. While every effort is made to ensure accuracy, SLC Faculty Local 417 makes no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, reliability, or suitability of the information shared. Any reliance placed on such information is strictly at the listener's own risk. Music and sound effects used in this podcast are licensed or royalty-free. We respect copyright law and encourage our listeners to do the same.